What's going on, guys? Ted for Nerd Immersion here, and I'm back with another Xanathar's Guide to Everything / Unearthed Arcana comparison video. We are getting down to the last few for the subclasses. There are still going to be some for other parts of Xanathar's Guide, but to be completely honest, I don't remember what they were, because when I made that first video, it was so long ago. So I'm focusing on these. So we got about 4 left. So what are we talking about this time? We're talking about the Celestial Warlock. So, why don't we go ahead and jump right in. So this was originally called the Undying Light Warlock in its initial appearance. It then received an update in the revised class options. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So, as a Warlock, you always get expanded spell selection options via your patron. For those, that is Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, Flaming Sphere, Lesser Restoration, Daylight, Revivify, Guardian of Faith, Wall of Fire, Flame Strike, and Greater Restoration. Let us check. Okay, so it was Cure Wounds and Guiding Bolt. It used to be Burning Hands and Cure Wounds. Still Flaming Sphere and Lesser Restoration. Still Daylight and Revivify. Guardian of Faith, Wall of Fire, and then Flame Strike, Greater Restoration. So they just swapped out Guiding Bolt for Burning Hands, which is okay, and there's a reason why. So at first level, you get the Light and Sacred Flame cantrips. You just learn those. They count as Warlock cantrips for you, and they don't count against your number of cantrips known. So I will say that I think, personally, that the Warlocks got some of the absolute best treatment in Xanathars. By and far. I've talked about some of the other subclasses that I enjoy. I do really like the Cavalier Fighter a bunch. I think the Bards were treated very well. I think Druids just needed extra options, and I do think that they do have good options. A Druid that has extra healing, and the Clerics as well, both treated very well. Barbarians are okay. And, I'm not going to go too much into all of them, but I think the Warlocks got the most love. And I think these classes are all very strong. So, first of all, you have your expanded spell options, which gives you access to healing as a Warlock, as well as some radiant damage spells and some fire damage spells, as well as a resurrection spell and Revivify. Again, as a reminder, you're a Warlock, so you're casting these potentially all at higher level slots as you level up. So things like Revivify won't get any bonus, but Cure Wounds will eventually be cast at 5th level. You don't have too many slots, but getting them back on a short rest and a short rest Cure Wounds for 5d8 plus your Charisma mod's not bad. Guiding Bolt's going to go up in damage, as are most of these spells. I think the only ones that won't get benefit from higher levels are Lesser Restoration, Daylight, Revivify, Greater Restoration, and Guardian of Faith. Flame Strike won't because it's 5th level. But those are all get upcast bonuses, again, assuming you choose these as some of your expanded spell options. But anyway, you get Light and Sacred Flame for free. Then you also have the Healing Light pool at level 1, which was retweaked from the original version. But you have a pool of d6s that you can spend to fuel this healing. The number of dice equals 1 plus your Warlock level, so you start off with 2d6 right out the gate. As a bonus action, you can heal a creature within 60 feet, spending the dice pool, so you don't even have to touch them. So it's a great ability, because this is like in between, right? So 60-foot range is a d4 healing for Healing Word, but it adds your modifier. Cure Wounds is a d8 plus your modifier, but it's touch. This is a bonus action, and you can spend dice, but it doesn't add your modifier. The maximum number of dice you can spend equals your Charisma modifier. So the minimum is 1, the maximum in a normal campaign will be 5. Roll the dice, add them together, and restore the number of hit points. You get all of these uses back on a long rest. So at maximum, if you went full 20 levels in Warlock, which I highly doubt you would, you might, but most people will dip out of Warlock at some point. In my play experience and in my general opinion, most people will dip out in the upper levels of Warlock to get themselves extra spell slots. But anyway, so theoretically, if you went 20 levels in Warlock, you'd have 21 d6 to heal, and you could heal 5d6 at a time as a bonus action to someone within 60 feet. Pretty powerful. What else did we get back here? We got Light and Sacred Flame, And we got Healing Light, 1 plus your Warlock level, number of d6s. As a bonus action here in the Unearthed Arcana, it was Touch. Now, it is 60 feet. That's a huge, huge bonus. And then it was the maximum number of dice you can spend equals your Charisma modifier, and they did come back on a long rest. So the only thing that this got was an increase of the range of their class-based healing from Touch to 60 feet. That's huge. That's amazing. That makes this ability as Touch was powerful in and of itself. Now it is 60-foot range, which is even better. Radiant Soul at level 6. You have resistance to radiant damage. Not a very heavily used damage type, radiant damage, that will be used typically against you as a player, as in most experiences I feel radiant damage comes from clerics and paladins. That's not to say you won't fight evil versions of those, but more often than not, spells have the option to be radiant or necrotic based on good and evil. Although now with the new development of some of the new spells, like Wall of Light, like Dawn, and like Sickening Radiance, you have access to radiant damaging spells that aren't tied to divinity, necessarily. So anyway, resistance to radiant damage. And when you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire damage, you can add your Charisma modifier to 1 radiant or fire damage roll of that spell against one of its targets. I believe that's the same thing. Resistance to radiant damage. When you cast a spell that deals radiant or fire, you can add it to 1 target of your choice. So it's not as great as some of the other abilities like this. So the downside is, say you don't have Fireball, but say you... what do we have? We have a good example up here. Flame Strike. You cast Flame Strike. It does its damage, and you could choose to add your Charisma modifier to 1 of the creatures impacted by that Flame Strike. Now, that being an AoE. Now, let's say you chose Guiding Bolt as one of your attacks, and you use Guiding Bolt. Then Guiding Bolt at a 1st level slot would become, actually at the time your 6th level would be a 3rd level slot, so 4 or 5. So that would do 66 plus your Charisma modifier in damage, the Guiding Bolt, which would be pretty powerful to a singular creature of your choice. There is, and I could be wrong, but there is some wonkiness here depending on how this goes, right? So you got some great things like Sacred Flame, which is an okay spell, right? Does a D8, it's a cantrip, does D8s and it scales up. Now it will do D8s plus your Charisma modifier, so that's a big bonus, because Sacred Flame ignores cover. It is a dexterity saving throw, but it's radiant damage, but doing, 2d8 at level 6, doing 2d8 plus potentially 5 damage is a lot better than just doing flat out 2d8. So that's a huge benefit. The real question that I feel comes up a lot is, let's say you have Green Flame Blade, right? So that's a cantrip you could get access to as a Warlock. It does, when you use Green Flame Blade, you make a melee attack, and it does a d8. It does your regular melee attack. So, say that's a d8 plus your dexterity, right? You're using a rapier or whatever. So you do that. Then, it jumps to the next, damage jumps to a target within 5 feet, equal to your Charisma modifier in fire damage. Well, does that then add your Charisma modifier twice in the damage? So if your Charisma modifier was a 5, does it do 10 damage to the secondary creature? I don't know. It's technically a situation where you're adding your Charisma modifier twice, but they're from separate features, so I don't know. But more importantly, when Green Flame Blade starts to level up, the initial creature takes additional fire damage. So at level 5, the initial target takes the effects of the attack plus a d8 fire damage, and then a d8 fire damage plus your Charisma modifier leaps to the secondary target. I think I'm saying that right. I should probably look that up because I have forgotten. It's been a long time since I've played a character that could use Green Flame Blade. Let us find out while I just continue to talk. Here we go. Green Flame Blade. Alright. Part of the attack action, you do an attack. On a hit, target suffers attacks, normal effects, and green fire leaps from that target to a different target you can see within 5 feet. They take fire damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. Then this says it's equal to your charisma modifier. So theoretically, that secondary target could take 10 damage. Then as you level up, at level 5, the first initial attack does a d8 fire damage, and the fire damage that jumps to the secondary target is a d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. And then it levels up by d8s. So essentially, you can only target one creature to add the initial charisma modifier damage to. So if you think about it, that first target that you just hit with your, let's say your rapier, or whatever your finesse-based weapon will say that you're using. So it does a, I don't know, let's say it's a short sword or something. You do a d6 plus your dexterity modifier. Then at level 5, it does another d8 fire damage, but now you're dealing fire damage to that character, or that enemy, so you can add your charisma modifier on top of that. So, theoretically, at level 6, when you get this ability, you could have that initial target take weapon damage, plus your weapon-based modifier, strength or dexterity, plus a d8 fire damage, plus your charisma modifier. That's a lot for a cantrip, and that cantrip just gets better. It goes up to 2d8 on the initial attack at 11, and then at 17 it's 3d8, so that could be melee weapon damage, plus melee weapon modifier, plus 3d8 plus charisma modifier to one target based on that first ability. And if you choose to apply it to the second ability, where the fire that jumps instead, it does d8 plus your spellcasting modifier plus your charisma modifier, so you could potentially do more damage to the secondary target, assuming it allows you to add charisma twice. Because one's your spellcasting mod, one's specifically called your charisma mod. Are those one and the same as far as the feature goes? That's up to you guys to determine. There may be an official ruling from Jeremy Crawford or somebody out there that may put that to bed. But I just wanted to talk about how much I really like that particular combo. Alright, let me get off my soapbox, because that just added a ton of time to this video. Level 10, Celestial Radiance. You gain temporary hit points whenever you finish a long rest. Temporary hit points equal your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. I'm sorry, short or long rest, make sure I say that correctly. Additionally, choose up to 5 creatures you can see at the end of the rest. Those creatures each gain temporary hit points equal to half your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. So this is pretty great. This is sort of a way to get the almost the Inspiring Leader feat sort of for free. The Inspiring Leader feat is you take 10 minutes to give a speech, and you and a handful of other creatures, I think up to 5 others, get temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. This is sort of that, where you get your level plus your charisma modifier, and then 5 other creatures get half your level plus your charisma modifier. So again, that's minimum 5 points there at level 10. That's just a solid all-around ability. Again, everything you've gotten so far is powerful. Extra cantrips, free healing, extra damage, a damage resistance, and now you're getting free temporary hit points every short or long rest. You're also a Warlock. You're going to try to make use of those short rests probably as best as you can, and then that's just going to give you more temporary hit points if you lose them. And this is exactly the same as the Unearthed Arcana version. And lastly, one of the super awesome abilities, again, it used to come a lot earlier in its initial version. It makes sense for it to be the capstone of this class. Searing Vengeance. Whenever you make a death saving throw, or whenever you have to make a death saving throw at the start of your turn, you can instead spring back to your feet with a burst of radiant energy. You regain hit points equal to half your hit point maximum, and then choose to stand up if you want to. Each creature of your choice that is within 30 feet of you takes a radiant damage equal to 2d8 plus your charisma modifier and is blinded until the end of the current turn. Once you use this feature, you can't use it until you finish a long rest. I believe it's exactly the same as it's written here. Death saving throw, stand back up to your feet with burst of radiant energy, hit point equal to your maximum, creature of your choice, 2d8 plus charisma mod, and blinded. Yeah. So this ability is amazing, right? This is a fantastic ability. Not that you're planning to go down all the time, but the fact that was when you have to make a death saving throw, you can choose to use this ability. So you don't have to. So you could go down and then risk it and say, hey, I have no saves, no failed saves. Maybe I'll try and make a 20 on my death save this go round and see if I can get up. No, I don't. Hopefully I can make it to the next turn. So you don't have to use it. But the fact that it is, as long as you don't take enough damage from an initial hit or on the start of your turn or however things work out, you could do a lot of wonky stuff depending on how you time where you are in like the initiative order and stuff. Like you could theoretically, we had in the initial version, we had in one of our games, we had somebody jump off of a cliff to fall and impact into the ground. To basically land on a bunch of enemies. He didn't have a lot of health left. He only had like 5 HP or something like that, and he ended up getting knocked unconscious from the fall. It wasn't enough to kill him outright. So he impacted these enemies, did damage to them by falling on them. Then when it got to his turn, he did this to stand up, and then the radiant damage took out the rest of the enemies. Again, it's every creature within 30 feet that you pick, they take the damage, and there's no save for the blind. They are blinded until the end of the current turn. So that is... yes, to the end of the current turn. Now, it says the current turn. I'm wondering if it's your turn, but if it means, like, this turn, just the wording is a little wonky. I'm assuming it means end of your turn. Not like the end of the round of combat before it goes back to the top. But this is also great because blinded creatures without access to blind sight or true sight or something like that cannot make opportunity attacks because to trigger an opportunity attack, they have to see you. That's part of the qualifier. When a creature that you can see leaves a threatened square, they can make an opportunity attack against the fleeing creature. So if you hit all these enemy creatures with the damage, soften them up, do a little bit of radiant damage, give them a no-save blind, assuming they are not immune to the blind condition and do not have some other means of sight, you can now scamper away without fear of opportunity attacks because they can't see you to make those attacks. Just a great all-around ability. Again, not something you want to come up, right? You don't want to go unconscious. But the fact that you have like an oh shit button that you can pop back up to half HP at the start of your turn so that you still have your full turn. This happens before your turn activates. So this happens, then you still have your action and a bonus action and your movement. So you can, again, you could movement dash or action dash movement as well to get even further away from these guys. You could use your own bonus action heal on yourself. You can see yourself if you're within 60 feet of yourself, so you can heal yourself as well on top of this healing. So you have a pretty good survivability rate at that point, on top of whatever other Warlock abilities you have, or things like that. Or you'll say you have invisibility or dimension door. They're blinded, and then they come back to sight, and you're gone. A lot of really cool stuff. I love this class. I think, personally, if I was going to go for a non-traditional healing class, so, right, not a bard, not a cleric, not a druid, the paladin's not really a healing class or a ranger, but we'll factor those in. If you were to not go for one of those and want to go for, like, say, the Divine Soul Sorcerer or the Celestial Warlock, I'd probably lean more towards the Celestial Warlock for efficiency purposes, as well as having a ton of abilities that synergize well with themselves from your spell slots, your free cantrips, just free healing all around, being able to combine, you have temporary hit points on top of being able to pop back up with your Searing Vengeance ability. You have a lot of stuff going for you that works out pretty well. And it's all pretty much keyed just off of your charisma modifier. So if you have just access to a good charisma mod, if you roll stats or something, you can get by with really just one good stat and be a very effective healer, as well as potentially have with some of these spells here, Flame Strike and otherwise, to do some serious damage, as well as keeping the party alive via your healing and temporary hit points. So, anyway, guys, maybe I'm a little too biased and I like this class a little too much. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What you think about the Celestial Warlock. Is it as good as I'm making it out to be? Is it better? Is it worse? What are your thoughts? A lot of you guys have been giving me a ton of great feedback on your thoughts on the classes that I've done videos on, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Plus, it's a Warlock, right? So you have a patron, a Celestial-based patron. And I love the idea of a patron that's not like a god or anything like that. Just like, it's a celestial creature, right? Your patron could be a unicorn or a coatl, and I think that that's just so cool, right? A giant flying celestial snake gives you magic. Like, I don't know, I just... The concept I just really like. So, anyway, guys, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time for the Hexblade, one of my absolute favorite classes.